The shuttle shook like a leaf in a storm. Hyenki gripped his seat as warning lights flashed red across the control panel. The engine made a terrible grinding sound that meant only one thing. They were going down. Emergency landing protocol activated. The computer voice said in a calm tone that did not match the chaos around him. Impact in 30 seconds. Hyenki closed his eyes and prepared for the worst. He had trained for this moment many times, but training never felt like this. His heart pounded as the shuttle broke through the thick canopy of alien trees. Branches scraped against the hull like giant claws. The impact came hard and fast. Metal twisted and glass shattered as the shuttle carved a deep groove through the forest floor. Hyenki felt his body slam against the safety harness. Pain shot through his left leg like fire. Then everything went quiet except for the hiss of escaping air and the crackle of damaged electronics. For a long moment, Hyenki just breathed. He was alive. That was something. He checked his body carefully. His left leg throbbed with sharp pain, but he could still move it. His ribs ached, but nothing felt broken. Blood trickled down from a cut on his forehead. The shuttle was a wreck. Smoke rose from the engine compartment and sparks flew from broken wires. The communication array was completely destroyed. No way to call for help. No way to tell anyone. Worry was. Hyenki unbuckled himself and tried to stand. His left leg nearly gave out under his weight. He grabbed the wall for support and looked down. His uniform was torn and blood seeped through the fabric just below his knee. Not good, but he had survived worse. He limped to the emergency supply locker and pulled out what he could carry. Medical kit, emergency food rations, water purification tablets, and a basic survival knife. The portable shelter was too damaged to use. Everything else was either broken or too heavy to take with his injured leg. Outside the shuttle, the alien forest stretched in every direction. The trees were massive, their trunks wider than Earth buildings. Their leaves were a deep purple color that cast strange shadows on the ground. The air smelled different here, sweet but with an edge that made him think of metal and electricity. Planet Cathura 7 was supposed to be uninhabited. That was why they sent him here, alone, on a stealth mission. Intelligence reports said the planet had plants and water, but no intelligent life. Just gather data and get out. Simple mission. Nothing felt simple now. Hyenki cleaned his wound with water from his emergency supply. The cut was deep but not life-threatening. He used the medical kit to bandage it tightly. The pressure hurt, but it would stop the bleeding. He had to keep moving. Staying near the crash site was dangerous. If there were predators on this planet, the smoke and noise would draw them like a beacon. He took one last look at the shuttle. It had been his way home. Now, it was just twisted metal and broken dreams. He shouldered his pack and started walking deeper into the forest. The ground was soft under his feet, covered with fallen leaves that crunched softly with each step. Strange sounds echoed through the trees. Calls and cries from creatures he could not see. Some sounded like birds, others were deeper, more threatening. After an hour of slow progress, Hyenki stopped to rest against a large tree. His leg was getting worse. Each step sent waves of pain up through his body. He needed to find shelter and water soon, or he would not last long. That was when he first felt it. The sensation of being watched. Hyenki froze and scanned the forest. Around him, nothing moved in the purple shadows between the trees. No sounds except the distant calls of unknown animals. But the feeling remained strong. Something was out there, studying him. He had learned to trust his instincts during years of military training. Right now, those instincts screamed danger. He was being hunted. Hyenki reached for his survival knife. The blade was only 6 inches long, not much against whatever lived in these woods. But it was better than nothing. He stayed perfectly still and listened. A branch cracked somewhere to his left. Then another sound, like something large, moving through the underbrush. Whatever it was big. Much bigger than him. Hyenki started moving again, trying to look casual while every muscle in his body stayed ready for action. He could not see his stalker, but he could feel its presence like a weight on his shoulders. It followed him as he limped through the forest, always staying just out of sight. The sun was getting lower in the alien sky. The purple leaves above his head filtered the light into strange patterns on the ground. Soon it would be dark, and Hyenki did not want to think about what came out in this forest after sunset. He found a small clearing with a stream running through it. The water looked clean and moved fast enough to be safe to drink. Hyenki knelt carefully by the edge and filled his water bottle. His reflection looked back at him from the surface. Tired, hurt, but still alive. As he stood up, movement caught his eye across the clearing. Something massive shifted in the shadows between the trees. For just a moment, he saw the outline of a creature unlike anything in Earth's databases. It stood on 4 legs, but its front limbs looked almost like arms. Its head was large and seemed to turn toward him with obvious intelligence, then it was gone, melting back into the forest like smoke. Hyenki's blood ran cold. This was no simple animal. Whatever was following him was smart enough to stay hidden while it studied him. It could have attacked already if it wanted to. The fact that it had not made him even more nervous. He set up a basic camp by the stream. As darkness fell, no fire. Fire would give away his position to anything else that might be hunting in these woods. He ate cold rations and tried to clean his wound again. The bleeding had stopped, but the leg was stiff and swollen. As night settled over the forest, new sounds filled the air. Howls and screams from creatures he could not imagine. But through it all, Hyenki felt those unseen eyes watching him, waiting. He did not sleep that first night. Every shadow could hide death. Every sound could be his stalker moving closer. But morning came anyway, and Hyenki was still alive. He packed his few supplies and started walking again. Behind him, something large followed in perfect silence. The second day started with Hyenki limping through the purple forest, his leg worse than before. Each step sent pain shooting up his thigh, but he kept moving. Stopping meant death. He could feel the creature following him, always staying just out of sight. Hyenki had been a soldier for 8 years. He knew how to track and how to hide. But this thing behind him was better at both. It moved without sound through the thick underbrush. Sometimes he caught a glimpse of shadow between the trees. Sometimes a branch would move when there was no wind. That was all. The forest was full of strange life. Small animals with 6 legs scurried through the purple leaves. Flying creatures with transparent wings buzzed overhead. Plants that looked like flowers but snapped shut when he got too close. Everything was alien, but everything seemed natural except for his silent follower. By midday, Hyenki's water was running low. His leg throbbed with each heartbeat. He needed to rest, but the creature was still there. He could feel it watching, waiting. Maybe it was waiting for him to get weaker. Maybe it was just curious. Either way, Hyenki did not plan to make things easy. He found a good spot near a fallen tree and sat down to rest. While he ate a small portion of his emergency rations, Hyenki worked on a plan. If this thing wanted to follow him, he would give it something to think about. Using his survival knife, Hyenki cut several thin branches and sharpened them into points. He dug small holes in the soft earth and planted the spikes along the path behind him. Then he covered them with leaves. Anyone following too closely would get a painful surprise. As he worked, Hyenki felt eyes watching his every move. The creature was learning from him. That thought made his skin crawl. Most animals on Earth were predictable. They acted on instinct. This thing seemed to be thinking about what it saw. After setting his traps, Hyenki moved on. He chose a winding path through the thickest part of the forest. If the creature was as big as it looked, the dense trees would slow it down. He also started leaving false trails, making marks on trees that led nowhere and backtracking over his own footsteps. The trick seemed to work. For the first time since the crash, Hyenki could not feel those invisible eyes on him. Maybe he had finally lost his pursuer. Or maybe it was just being more careful. Late in the afternoon, Hyenki heard something that made him stop cold. A soft grunt of pain from somewhere behind him. One of his traps had worked. The creature had stepped on a spike and gotten hurt. Instead of feeling safer, Hyenki felt worse. He had hurt something that had not actually attacked him. The creature could have killed him already if it wanted to. It was big enough and smart enough. But it had just followed and watched. Hyenki found himself thinking about the creature as he walked. What did it want? Why was it following a wounded alien instead of hunting easier prey? The forest was full of those small 6-legged animals that would make a good meal. Yet this thing chose to follow him. As the sun began to set, Hyenki came across something that changed everything. A small clearing where one of the 6-legged creatures lay trapped under a fallen branch. The little animal was hurt and scared. Its big eyes looked up at Hyenki with obvious fear. Hyenki knew he should keep walking. He needed to save his strength and his supplies. But looking at the trapped creature reminded him of his own situation. Alone, hurt, and scared on an alien world. He knelt down and carefully lifted the branch. The small animal scrambled away on 5 good legs, the 6th one clearly injured. Hyenki watched it disappear into the underbrush. Then he broke open one of his food rations and scattered some of the dried meat near where the creature had gone. As he stood up, Hyenki felt those familiar eyes watching him again. His pursuer had caught up, but something felt different this time. The presence did not feel as threatening. It felt almost curious. That Hyenki continued walking as darkness fell over the forest. He was looking for a place to spend the night when the first drops of rain began to fall. Within minutes, the light rain became a heavy downpour. Water fell through the purple leaves in sheets, soaking everything. Lightning flashed across the alien sky, followed by thunder that shook the ground. This was not just rain. This was a storm that could kill. Hyenki needed shelter fast. He stumbled through the forest, his injured leg making it hard to keep his balance on the wet ground. Lightning lit up the trees around him in brief, bright moments. In one of those flashes, he saw something that gave him hope. A dark opening in a rocky hillside. A cave. Hyenki half ran, half fell toward the cave entrance. The opening was just big enough for him to squeeze through. Inside, the cave was dry and warm. He collapsed on the sandy floor, grateful to be out of the storm. As he caught his breath, Hyenki heard something that made his blood freeze. Heavy footsteps splashing through the rain outside. His pursuer had followed him to the cave. The creature was looking for shelter too. Hyenki pressed himself against the back wall of the cave and gripped his knife. The footsteps came closer. Lightning flashed outside, and for a moment the cave entrance was bright as day. In that instant, Hyenki got his first clear look at the thing that had been following him. It was huge, bigger than any earth animal he had ever seen. It stood on 4 powerful legs, but its front limbs ended in something like hands. Its head was large and intelligent, with eyes that reflected the lightning like mirrors. Thick fur covered its body, now soaked from the rain. The creature stopped at the cave entrance and looked inside. Its eyes found Hyenki immediately. For a long moment, human and alien stared at each other. Hyenki expected to die. The creature was easily strong enough to tear him apart. But instead of attacking, the creature did something unexpected. It backed away from the cave entrance and found another spot to wait out the storm. Just close enough to keep watch, but far enough away to not threaten the injured human inside. Hyenki slowly relaxed his grip on the knife. This creature was not hunting him, it was protecting him. But why? What could a wounded human possibly mean to an alien predator? Outside, the storm raged through the night. Inside the cave, Hyenki finally closed his eyes and tried to rest. For the first time since the crash, he felt almost safe. Something was watching over him in the darkness, and somehow that did not scare him anymore. Hyenki woke up to silence. The storm had passed during the night, leaving the forest quiet and still. His leg felt stiff and cold. When he tried to move, sharp pain shot through his injured limb. The wound was getting worse. He looked toward the cave entrance. Morning light filtered through the purple leaves outside. There was no sign of the large creature that had sheltered near the cave during the storm. Maybe it had moved on. Maybe it had finally lost interest in the wounded human. Hyenki tried to stand, but his leg would not support his weight. He fell back against the cave wall, breathing hard. 3 days without proper food or rest had taken their toll. The infection in his wound was spreading. He could feel fever starting to build in his body. His water was almost gone. His food would last maybe 1 more day. Without help, he would die in this cave. Hyenki had faced death before, but never like this. Never alone on an alien world with no one to know what happened to him. He closed his eyes and tried to think. There had to be a way out. There was always a way out. His training had taught him that, but his training had not prepared him for this situation. When Hyenki opened his eyes again, the sun was high overhead. He had fallen asleep without meaning to. That was bad. It meant the fever was getting stronger. He needed to move, to find water and food, but his body would not obey. That was when he heard the footsteps outside the cave. Heavy steps moved slowly through the forest. The creature had returned. Hyenki reached for his knife, but his hand shook too much to grip it properly. He was too weak to fight, even if he wanted to. The footsteps stopped at the cave entrance. A large shadow blocked the morning light. Hyenki looked up and saw the massive creature standing there, looking down at him. Its intelligent eyes studied his face. It could see that he was dying. For a long moment, neither moved. Then the creature did something that shocked Hyenki completely. It backed away from the entrance and made a soft sound, almost like it was trying to speak. The sound was gentle, not threatening. The creature disappeared from view. Hyenki heard it moving around outside the cave, but he was too weak to care. He drifted in and out of consciousness as the fever burned through his body. Sometime later, a sound woke him. Something was being dragged across the ground outside. Then the creature appeared at the cave entrance again. This time, it was not alone. 3 smaller predators prowled around the cave opening. They looked like the 6-legged animals from the forest, but bigger and with sharp teeth. They had smelled the blood from Hyenki's wound and come looking for an easy meal. The large creature placed itself between the predators and the cave. It made a deep growling sound that echoed through the forest. The smaller animals circled it, looking for a way past. They were hungry and determined. One of the predators made the mistake of getting too close. The large creature struck out with one of its front limbs. The blow sent the smaller animal flying through the air to crash against a tree. It did not get back up. The other 2 predators backed away, but they did not leave. They stayed at the edge of the clearing, waiting for their chance. The large creature settled down at the cave entrance like a guard. It was protecting Hyenki, but he could not understand why. Hours passed. The fever made everything seem like a dream. Sometimes Hyenki thought he was back on Earth in his childhood home. Sometimes he imagined he was still in his shuttle before the crash. But always, when he opened his eyes, he saw the large creature watching over him. As the sun began to set, the creature moved closer to the cave entrance. It dropped something on the ground near Hyenki's feet. When he looked down, he saw fresh water in a large leaf that had been shaped into a bowl. Next to it were some purple fruits that looked safe to eat. Hyenki stared at the gifts. The creature had brought him food and water. It was taking care of him like he was part of its pack. But why would an alien predator help a wounded human? With shaking hands, Hyenki picked up the leaf bowl and drank. The water was clean and cold. It was the best thing he had tasted in days. He ate one of the fruits carefully. It was sweet and gave him a little strength. The creature watched him eat. With what looked like satisfaction, when Hyenki finished, it made that same soft sound from before. This time, Hyenki tried to copy the sound. His attempt was weak and wrong, but the creature seemed pleased that he had tried. During the night, Hyenki felt something touch his injured leg. He woke to find the creature gently cleaning his wound with wet leaves. The touch was surprisingly gentle for such a large animal. The leaves smelled like medicine and made the pain in his leg feel better. When the creature was done, it moved back to its guard position at the cave entrance. The two remaining predators were still out there, waiting, but they would not get past this unlikely protector. Hyenki lay back and tried to understand what was happening. This creature could have killed him easily on the first day. Instead, it had followed him, protected him, and now it was nursing him back to health. It showed intelligence and compassion that he had not expected from an alien life form. Maybe the creature was just curious about humans. Maybe it had never seen anything like him before. Or maybe there was something deeper happening here, something that neither of them fully understood yet. Sleep took him. Hyenki felt safer than he had since the crash. Whatever this creature wanted from him, it was keeping him alive. Tomorrow, maybe he would be strong enough to find a way to communicate with his strange guardian. Outside the cave, the large creature kept its watch through the night. It had made a choice that went against every instinct of its species. It was protecting a being that should have been prey. But something about this small, determined creature had touched something deep inside its mind. The bond between them was forming, built on mutual respect and need. Neither understood it yet, but both felt its power. In a universe full of dangers, they had found something precious. They had found each other. Morning would bring new challenges, but for now, they rested together in the safety of the cave. Human and alien, predator and prey, learning to trust in the darkness of an alien night. The fourth day dawned bright and clear. Hyenki woke, feeling stronger than he had in days. The fever was gone, and his leg hurt less. The medicinal leaves the creature had used were working. He could move without falling over. The large creature sat at the cave entrance, watching the forest. It turned when Hyenki stirred and made that soft sound again. This time, Hyenki was ready. He tried to copy the sound more carefully, paying attention to the tone and pitch. The creature tilted its massive head, listening. Then it made a different sound, deeper and longer. Hyenki tried to repeat it. He was getting better at making the alien sounds, though he had no idea what they meant. For the next hour, they continued this strange conversation. The creature would make a sound and wait for Hyenki to try copying it. When he got close, the creature seemed pleased. When he got it wrong, it would repeat the sound more slowly. Hyenki realized they were teaching each other. He started pointing to things and saying their names in Korean. Rock, water, tree. The creature listened carefully and tried to repeat the human words. Its voice was too deep and the sounds came out wrong, but it was trying. When Hyenki felt strong enough, he moved to the cave entrance and sat next to the creature. Up close, it was even more impressive. Its fur was thick and soft-looking. Its eyes were intelligent and kind. The hands at the end of its front limbs had fingers that could grip and manipulate objects. Hyenki took out his survival knife and started drawing pictures in the sandy cave floor. First, he drew a simple circle for the sun, then he drew two stick figures, one tall and one short. He pointed to the tall figure and then to the creature. He pointed to the short figure and then to himself. The creature studied the drawings with great interest. It reached out with one finger and traced the lines Hyenki had made. Then it took the knife carefully in its large hand and drew its own picture. The lines were shaky but clear. It drew the same two figures, but this time they were standing close together. Hyenki smiled. The creature understood friendship. Over the next few hours, they developed a simple way to communicate. Pictures in the sand, gestures with their hands, and the growing vocabulary of sounds they were teaching each other. It was slow work, but both were patient. The creature had a name for itself. The sound was complex, but Hyenki shortened it to something he could say, Tan. The creature seemed to accept this human version of its name. When Hyenki pointed to himself and said his own name, Tan tried to repeat it. The result sounded nothing like Korean, but Hyenki understood. They were no longer strangers. They had names for each other. As the day continued, Hyenki learned more about his new friend. Tan was young for its species, curious about the world beyond its forest. Homid had never seen a creature like Hyenki before. The humans' strange appearance and behavior had fascinated Tan from the first moment. Tan showed Hyenki which plants were safe to eat and which ones were dangerous. It brought fresh water from a spring deeper in the forest. It even showed Hyenki how to weave the large leaves into better containers and tools. In return, Hyenki shared his knowledge. He showed Tan how to make fire using his emergency lighter. The flame amazed Tan, who had never seen controlled fire before. Hyenki demonstrated how fire could cook food and provide warmth. He was careful to keep the flame small and safe. Far above the planet, Dr. Sojin Park sat in the command center of the rescue ship, orbiting Kithara 7. She studied the scanner readings with growing concern. Lieutenant Hyenki's shuttle had been missing for 4 days. The crash site had been located, but there was no sign of the pilot. Anything on the long-range sensors? Asked Captain Minho Lee as he entered the command center. Nothing useful, Sojin replied. The forest is too thick. Too much interference from the local plant life. We need to send down search teams. I have been thinking the same thing, Minho said, but the reports said this planet was uninhabited. If there are no dangerous animals, why has Lieutenant Hyenki not reached the emergency beacon at the crash site? Sojin pulled up the biological survey data on her screen. The reports could be wrong. We are seeing life signs all over the planet. Most are small, but some are quite large. There could be predators down there. Then we go in, armed and ready. Minho decided, I will not lose another good soldier to this mission. Back in the forest, Hyenki and Tan were building something together. Using strong vines and branches, they were making the cave more comfortable. Tan's strength let it move heavy stones to block the back entrance. Hyenki's knowledge of construction helped them build a proper shelter. As they worked, Hyenki found himself thinking about his situation. He had been sent to this planet to gather intelligence about possible colony sites. His mission was supposed to last 2 weeks. Then the shuttle would return to pick him up. But now, everything had changed. The shuttle was destroyed. His radio was broken. Even if rescue came, how could he explain Tan? How could he make his people understand that this creature was not a threat, but a friend? That evening, as they sat by their small fire, Hyenki tried to draw pictures that would explain his situation. He drew his shuttle coming from the sky. He drew it crashing. He drew other shuttles that might come looking for him. Tan studied the pictures carefully. It seemed to understand that Hyenki was not from this world. It drew its own pictures, showing many creatures like itself, living in different parts of the forest. It was not alone either. It had a family, a community. The implications hit Hyenki like a physical blow. If Tan had a family, then this planet was not uninhabited. There was an intelligent species here. His mission had been based on wrong information. The colony plans would have to be changed completely. But more than that, Tan had left its family. To help him, it had chosen to stay with a strange alien creature instead of returning to its own kind. The sacrifice was enormous, and Hyenki felt the weight of responsibility. He reached out and touched Tan's large hand. The creature looked at him with those intelligent eyes. Without words, Hyenki tried to convey his gratitude. He pointed to himself, then to Tan, then drew a picture of them standing together against danger. Tan made a sound that Hyenki had learned meant agreement. They were partners now. Whatever came next, they would face it together. As night fell over the forest, both friends settled down to rest. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight, they had each other. In a universe full of unknowns, they had found something rare and precious. They had found understanding. The sound of engines filled the morning air. Hyenki and Tan both looked up as 3 military shuttles flew overhead, their sensors scanning the forest below. The rescue mission had finally arrived. Hyenki felt mixed emotions as he watched the shuttles circle the area. Part of him was relieved. He would finally be able to go home, to get proper medical care for his leg, to see other humans again. But another part of him felt sad. Going home meant leaving Tan behind. Tan sensed his distress and made a questioning sound. Hyenki pointed to the shuttles and then to himself. He tried to explain using their shared vocabulary of sounds and gestures that these were his people coming to take him away. Understanding dawned in Tan's intelligent eyes. It made a low sound that Hyenki had learned meant sadness. Tan did not want their friendship to end either. Attention all ground teams, came a voice from Hyenki's emergency radio, which he had finally been able to repair using parts from the cave. This is Captain Minho Lee. We have located the crash site. Begin search pattern alpha. The missing pilot may be injured and unable to signal for help. Hyenki picked up the radio and pressed the transmit button. This is Lieutenant Hyenki Nam. I am alive and mobile. My position is approximately 2 kilometers northeast of the crash site. I repeat, I am alive and requesting pickup. The response came immediately. Lieutenant Nam, this is Captain Lee. Thank God you are alive. Are you injured? Do you need immediate medical attention? I have a leg injury, but I can walk. Hyenki replied, Captain, I need to warn you about something important. This planet is not uninhabited. There are intelligent life forms here. I repeat, there are intelligent natives on this planet. Silence on the radio for a long moment. Then Captain Lee's voice came back, tense and professional. Understood, Lieutenant. Are you under threat from hostile natives? Do you need immediate extraction? Hyenki looked at Tan, who was listening to the conversation with obvious concern. Negative, Captain. The natives are not hostile. In fact, one of them saved my life. I am currently under the protection of a friendly alien being. Lieutenant, you may be suffering from shock or hallucinations due to your injuries, came the careful voice of Dr. Sojin Park, the mission's medical officer. We are coming to get you. Stay where you are and avoid contact with any large animals. Dr. Park, I am not hallucinating, Hyenki said firmly. The The creature with me is intelligent, peaceful, and has been caring for my injuries for the past several days. You need to approach slowly and carefully. Any aggressive action will be seen as a threat. Through the radio came the sound of urgent discussion in the background. Finally, Captain Lee spoke again. Lieutenant, we are going to trust your judgment, guide us to your position, but be prepared for immediate extraction if the situation becomes dangerous. Hyenki gave them directions to the cave. Then he turned to Tan and tried to explain what was about to happen. Using pictures in the sand, he showed soldiers coming through the forest. He drew them carrying weapons, but tried to convey that they were not planning to attack. Tan understood the basics. More humans were coming. They had weapons. They were coming to take Hyenki away. The large creature stood and moved to the cave entrance, its body tense and ready for danger. 20 minutes later, the sound of boots on forest floor announced the arrival of the rescue team. Captain Minho Lee led 4 soldiers through the trees, their weapons ready but not aimed. Behind them came Dr. Sojin Park carrying a medical kit. They stopped when they saw TAHN. The alien creature was even more impressive than Hyenki's radio descriptions had suggested. It stood nearly 3 meters tall, with powerful limbs and intelligent eyes that tracked every movement of the approaching humans. It positioned itself protectively between the soldiers and the cave where Hyenki waited. "Holy Mother of God," whispered Sergeant Yujin Kim, the team's communications specialist. "That thing is huge." "Hold positions," Captain Lee commanded quietly. "Nobody makes any sudden moves." "Lieutenant Nam, can you hear me?" "I can hear you," Captain Hyenki called from inside the cave. "I am going to come out slowly. Please tell your people not to shoot. Tan is protecting me, not threatening me." Hyenki emerged from the cave, limping but upright. He placed one hand on Tan's arm in a gesture of friendship and trust. The alien creature relaxed slightly but remained alert. Dr. Park stepped forward carefully. "Lieutenant, I need to examine your injuries. Can you ask your friend to let me approach?" Hyenki spoke to Tan in their shared language of sounds and gestures. He pointed to Dr. Park and mimicked treating wounds. Tan considered this, then stepped aside but remained close enough to intervene if needed. As Dr. Park began examining Hyenki's leg, the soldiers watched Tan with fascination and fear. The creature was clearly intelligent. It watched the medical examination with obvious interest, sometimes making soft sounds that seemed like questions. "This is incredible," Dr. Park muttered as she worked. "The wound has been treated with some kind of plant-based medicine. Very sophisticated, and these bandages are made from processed plant fibers. Lieutenant, this creature has been giving you actual medical care." "I told you," Hyenki said. "Tan is not just intelligent, it is compassionate. It could have killed me easily on the first day, but instead it chose to help." Captain Lee approached slowly, his weapon holstered. "Lieutenant, what you have discovered here changes everything. First contact with an intelligent alien species. This will have to be reported to the highest levels of command." "Sir, there is more," Hyenki said. "Tan is not alone. It has shown me pictures of its family, its community. There may be hundreds, or thousands of them living in different parts of this forest. The implications hit everyone at the same time. This was not just first contact with one alien. This was contact with an entire civilization that Earth had not known existed." Sergeant Kim activated her long-range communicator. "Orbital Command, this is Ground Team 1. We have recovered Lieutenant Nam, but we have a much bigger situation here. Request immediate contact with Fleet Command. We have confirmed intelligent alien life on Cathura 7, as the soldiers called for reinforcements and prepared to establish a first contact protocol." Hyenki sat with Tan and tried to explain what was happening. The rescue had become much more complicated than anyone had expected. Tan seemed to understand that big changes were coming. It made the sound that meant concern and pointed toward the deeper forest. Hyenki realized that Tan was worried about its own people. What would happen? When more humans arrived, would they be peaceful like Hyenki, or would they see Tan's people as threats to be eliminated? Captain Hyenki said urgently, "We need to be very careful how we handle this. Tan's people have probably been watching us since we arrived on their planet. Our next actions will determine whether we make friends or enemies." Captain Lee nodded grimly. "Understood, Lieutenant, but this decision is above our pay grade now. Fleet Command will want to take over this situation immediately." As if summoned by his words, more shuttles appeared overhead. The simple rescue mission had become something much larger and more dangerous. The fate of 2 species now hung in the balance, connected by the unlikely friendship between a wounded human soldier and an alien who had chosen compassion over instinct. The hunt for Hyenki was over, but a much more important hunt was just beginning. The hunt for understanding. Between worlds. 3 weeks later, the forest clearing had been transformed into a meeting ground between 2 worlds. Prefabricated buildings housed human diplomats and scientists. Careful paths had been cut through the trees to allow easy movement while disturbing the local environment as little as possible. Admiral Dong Ho Yoon stood at the edge of the clearing, watching as Ambassador HFY Choi prepared for the most important meeting in human history. Today, Tan would bring representatives of its people to meet with Earth's diplomatic team. Hyenki sat on a log near the center of the clearing, his injured leg finally healing properly thanks to both human medicine and the alien plant treatments that Dr. Park had been studying. Beside him, Tan waited patiently for its family to arrive. The bond between human and alien had only grown stronger during the past weeks. Hyenki had served as interpreter while both species learned to communicate. His unique relationship with Tan had made him the most valuable person in the entire First Contact mission. "Are you nervous?" Dr. Park asked as she checked her recording equipment one final time. Everything that happened today would be studied by scientists and historians for generations. "Yes," Hyenki admitted, "but not about the meeting. I am nervous about what comes after. Once both governments get involved, will Tan and I still be allowed to work together?" It was a valid concern. Already, some voices back on Earth were calling for a military approach to the alien contact. They wanted to establish human dominance over the planet before the aliens could become a threat. Only the personal testimony of Hyenki and his rescue team had prevented a show of force. A deep sound echoed through the forest. Tan stood up immediately, recognizing the call of its people. "They come," it said in the hybrid language it had developed with Hyenki. The alien had learned to speak human words, though they sounded strange in its deep voice. 5 figures emerged from the tree line. They were similar to Tan but clearly different individuals. An older one with silver-streaked fur who moved with obvious authority. A smaller one that seemed female, with more delicate features. 3 others of various sizes, all watching the humans with intelligent curiosity rather than fear. Tan made a complex series of sounds, explaining the situation to its people. The older alien, clearly a leader, responded with equally complex vocalizations. Then it approached the human group with slow, deliberate steps. Ambassador Choi stepped forward, her diplomatic training keeping her calm despite the historic nature of the moment. "I am Ambassador HFY Choi, representing the people of Earth. We come in peace and friendship." The alien leader looked at her, then at Tan, then at Hyenki. It made a sound that Hyenki had learned meant questioning. Tan responded by gesturing to Hyenki and making the sounds that meant friend and trust. The leader studied Hyenki for a long moment. Then it did something that surprised everyone. It approached him directly and extended one of its large hands. Hyenki took the hand carefully, feeling the strength and warmth in the alien's grip. "Elder greets the small friend of Tan," the leader said in halting human words. "Elder has heard the story. Human shows honor. Human shows compassion. These are good things." Ambassador Choi looked amazed. "You speak our language." "Tan teaches us," the elder replied. "We learn fast. We watch humans for many days. We see you are not all the same. Some have good hearts. Some have fear. Some have anger, like our own people." Over the next several hours, the meeting progressed better than anyone had dared hope. The aliens, who called themselves the Cathari, had been observing human activity since the first shuttles arrived. They had been prepared for conflict, but Tan's friendship with Hyenki had convinced them to try peaceful contact instead. Dr. Park presented her findings about the plant medicines the Cathari used. The aliens shared their knowledge freely, explaining which plants could heal different injuries and diseases. In return, the humans demonstrated their own medical technology. Admiral Yoon discussed territorial boundaries and resource sharing. The Cathari were willing to allow human settlements in certain areas of the planet, as long as the most sacred forests remained protected. They were more interested in trade and knowledge exchange than in driving the humans away. But the most important moment came when the Cathari elder asked to speak with Hyenki privately. The two moved away from the main group, with Tan serving as translator when needed. "The small friend of Tan has changed many things," the elder said. "Before you came, we saw humans as invaders, dangerous creatures who would destroy our world. But you showed kindness to our young one. You shared food with small animals. You made friend where others would make enemy." "Tan saved my life," Hyenki replied. "I did nothing special. I just treated a friend the way friends should be treated." The elder made a sound that might have been laughter. "You say nothing special, but look around you. 2 species who should be enemies now talk of peace. This is not small thing. This is miracle." As the sun began to set, both groups gathered for a final ceremony. Ambassador Choi and the Cathari elder signed a preliminary agreement establishing peaceful relations between their peoples. Trade routes would be established. Cultural exchanges would begin, and most importantly, the planet would be shared rather than conquered. Admiral Yoon approached Hyenki as the ceremony concluded. "Lieutenant, I have orders from Earth Command. You are being promoted to captain and assigned as permanent human liaison to the Cathari. That is, if you accept the position." Hyenki looked at Tan, who had been listening to the conversation. His alien friend made the sound that meant happiness and agreement. "I accept, sir. I can think of no greater honor." 6 months later, Captain Hyenki Nam stood in the same forest clearing, now expanded into a thriving diplomatic compound. Human and Cathari children played together under the purple trees. Scientists from both species worked side by side in research laboratories. Traders negotiated deals for exotic goods and technologies. Tan approached carrying a small Cathari child on its shoulders. The little one was learning to speak human words, just as human children in the compound were learning Cathari sounds. Good morning, friend, Tan said in much improved human speech. The little one wants to hear the crash story again. Hyenki smiled and reached up to pat the child's head. Again, I told it yesterday. Yes, but children like good stories, Tan replied. And it is good story. Story of how enemies became friends. Story of how one small act of kindness changed the galaxy. As they walked toward the compound's central meeting area, Hyenki reflected on how much had changed since that terrifying day when his shuttle crashed in the alien forest. He had been sent to gather intelligence about an empty planet. Instead, he had found a new family and helped forge the first alliance between humanity and an alien species. The bond that had formed between him and Tan in those desperate days had become the foundation for peace between worlds. It proved that understanding was possible even across the vast differences between species. All it took was the willingness to see the person behind the alien appearance. In the meeting hall, representatives from Earth and Kithara 7 were planning new joint missions to explore other worlds. The friendship between human and Cathari was spreading outward, creating ripples of peace throughout the galaxy, and at the center of it all, a wounded soldier and the alien who had chosen to save him continued their unlikely partnership. They had shown two worlds that enemies could become friends, that fear could become trust, and that the strongest bonds were forged not in comfort, but in the crucible of shared hardship. The galaxy was a little less lonely now, and it all started with a choice made in the darkness of an alien forest when compassion proved stronger than instinct and friendship conquered fear.